Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how it's all kicking off Brexit-wise. I suppose was inevitable. The EU summit just a couple of days ago ended up with some very unexpected, in-your-face Brexit conclusions for Boris Johnson. Of course, Boris Johnson's had to come back going, no. So I'm going to discuss that. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So this is going to be very fast moving. I may even have to hasten this one out. This was supposed to come out on Saturday, but there's supposed to be announcements later today. So I'm just going to respond on what happened at the end of the EU summit and what Boris Johnson's statement earlier today has been, and try and rejig things. We'll see what happens. But first of all, the EU statements on Brexit can be summarised as follows. 1. There has not been sufficient progress to enter the final stage tunnel talks. There are still outstanding issues to be resolved on fishing, the level playing field and governance. 2. If the UK wants a deal, it will have to come up with the solutions. We're busy dealing with a global pandemic right now, if you don't mind. And that was it. Not much in the way of conciliatory language. A very terse, actually, surprisingly for me, terse. We're busy right now. Do you have anything intelligent to say? If not, would you kindly piss off and come back when you're actually ready? We'll still be here in 2021. The UK's chief negotiator David Frost's initial reaction was to try and suggest that the EU Commission President had promised that tunnel talks would begin next week, and now the EU Council had gone back on that promise. This is nonsense. I made at least 2 videos since that meeting between the UK Prime Minister and the EU Commission President on the issues of potentially impending tunnel talks, the final stages of intense negotiations that take place towards the end of trade agreement negotiations. And I made clear in those videos that tunnel talks would only proceed if the EU Council viewed progress as being sufficient. I did a video a few days ago saying that Boris Johnson had these 3 problems to solve if he wanted his tunnel talks. You know, it made clear that Johnson would have to come up with some more proposals on fishing, the level playing field, including state aid and governance. So if I knew about that, I'm pretty sure that David Frost and Boris Johnson did as well. So their statements were just intended, of course, as they often are, to try and convince the British public that the EU were playing silly buggers. But like I've said it before, okay, you may succeed in this. Maybe you will succeed in this. There's quite a lot of the media will back you up on it. Not as much as would have done a year ago. But what is the point? We've left. Does he not realise? We've left the EU. We're no longer an EU member. We're a third country. A third independent sovereign nation, as he likes to say. I can understand trying to drive a wedge between the British and the rest of the EU while we were still members and the whole issue could still be reversed. But that's pointless now. Let's say you convince people in this country that the EU are playing silly buggers. What does that gain you? Are the EU going to stop playing silly buggers? No, because the British public are no longer the EU public. They don't care. They don't have to care. You know, we've left. We can't get back in without a whole load of steps, none of which can possibly happen while we've got this Conservative government. But anyway, Johnson then had to respond, of course. Now, it was a very, very terse conclusion from the summit. It wasn't at all, well, you know, we've been very pleased, but there's still a few little things to iron out. There was none of that. It was like, look, you've pissed about all year. You're still pissing about. Stop pissing about and do something, will you? Obviously, for someone with an ego the size of Boris Johnson's, that requires a response. Now, I did a video yesterday ahead of the summit because what Boris Johnson has said is if he didn't get his tunnel talks after the EU summit, that he would break off all talks. Now, I did the video saying he'd gone back on that yesterday before the summit had even taken place because he'd allowed it to be known that the talks would carry on, as indeed they're going to be. Had he ended the talks today, actually properly ended them, I could have looked like a bit of a tit. That has happened before. That has happened. And maybe still will, because I bet you there's in the comments here, some people saying, but he has broken off talks, so he has. No, he hasn't. So I looked at the statement, so he made a statement that said he would both cancel and not cancel the talks. So the way he phrased it was to say, look, we wanted this Canada-style deal, which was never on the table. And they won't give it to us. So that's that then. We're having a no-deal Brexit. So that sort of sounds like you're cancelling the talks. And he said, but if they change their minds, then we're willing to listen. So have the talks ended or not? So he was asked this directly. A journalist asked it. Their actual words were, are you walking away? All he had to do was say, well, yeah, at the moment, as things stand, yeah. I mean, if the EU want to say, actually, they're going to change their position, then we're willing to listen. But yeah, at this moment, we're walking away. That's all he had to say. Did he say that? No, he didn't. No, he didn't. No confirmation at all. So the talks are obviously still going on. I'll tell you what it sounds like to me. He can't break off the talks. If he breaks off the talks, obviously he can't get a deal. And I mean ever. Even if we're talking next year, when it becomes very obvious we need a deal, he would have to go to the EU and say, can we restart talks? We're very sorry we broke them off. It seemed to be a bit of an error on my part. Boris Johnson's not the sort of person to do that. So instead what he does is he says it in such a way that makes it sound like there's not going to be any talks and it is going to be a no-deal Brexit, for the likes of the Daily Express and the Mail and so on. But on the other hand, talks are still going on. And if it turns out that there is some movement, and I will do a video on where that could be with fishing tomorrow, although it is not looking likely, then if someone points to him and goes, hang on, the talks seem to have started up. Did you restart the talks? He just gets to say, I never stopped the talks. I mean, we never stopped talking. I never cancelled them. It's like that, isn't it? So he can give the impression. So Brexiteers can carry on thinking the talks have ended. In reality, they haven't. I mean, the talks aren't taking place in the full public glare anyway. The talks will be taking place next week, as they have been for weeks for the last few months. So I don't think we're going to get a deal this year, is how it looks. You never know. But based on what's happened this week, I still believe that Boris Johnson wants one, because otherwise it'd been the easiest thing in the world to have just said, right, well, we're walking away then. Easiest thing in the world. I think Johnson still thinks he can get a deal. He wouldn't cancel the talks because then he would look stupid if he had to ask for them to resume later on. That's not going to happen. We have to bear in mind what Boris Johnson's plan has been throughout this in order to get a deal. And he's been quite happy to state this. And as his actions haven't contradicted his statements, I'm quite happy to believe that this statement is true. It's very difficult to believe any statement of Boris Johnson's is true. But it's, it runs in parallel to his actions. His plan for getting a deal was to threaten the EU with the nuclear option of a no-deal Brexit. They can't afford to leave without a deal with us. I mean, we're Britain. For goodness sake. Let's be sensible here. So in this vein, he refused to come up with proposals for over half a year. He kept banging on about a Canada-style deal, even though the EU ruled this out years ago and explained exactly why they rule it out. He even threatened peace in Northern Ireland, which has since spectacularly backfired, as he's now persona non grata in the country of his birth, the United States, to say nothing of the legal action he is now facing from the EU itself. But all of this so-called hardball strategy has either failed or backfired. He threatened to pull out of talks, remember, earlier this summer, according to another spurious deadline he came up with. Wasn't met, called his bluff, he backed down again. So a good analyst at this point would see that the current strategy is failing. It's not working. The EU don't seem to be cracking. If anything, they're hardening their stance. That's not how it's supposed to work. They're hardening their stance. That's a problem. Right, we need a different approach. Is that what Boris Johnson is doing? No. What he's actually doing is doubling down on the crazy. So the EU have said that the UK must now come up with some serious proposals in order to unlock a deal. Johnson's response to this is to say, no, you. Boris Johnson gave a statement which told people and businesses in Britain that we are going to end up without a deal with the EU unless Brussels changes its attitude. So he can't even be bothered to say it's definitely going to be a no deal. He's still going, well, it might. Yeah, it might be a no deal. It might have been a no deal since 2016. What are you updating us here, Prime Minister? Is it going to be a no deal outcome? Well, I mean, yes, if Brussels don't change their mind. Right? So is it or not? Maybe. I mean, naturally, he spent most of his statement blaming the EU for it, as was to be expected. Water for ducks back, doesn't matter. He also said that we will prosper mightily without a deal. That's his words, we'll prosper mightily. So I'm thinking, well, this is the same old contradictions. We don't need a deal. We can prosper without a deal just fine. What do you mean you won't give us a deal? We want a deal so badly we're putting in so much effort for a deal. We don't need a deal. We can prosper without a deal just fine. It goes round and round. It's driving me crazy. Absolutely crazy. But there it is. There it is. I'm going to have to get this out really quickly because his new presser is given a statement later on today. Not him. No, he can't be arsed now. He is spending £100,000 of public money a year now to get someone else to make his announcements for him and to take questions that he can't be asked to field himself. Whether that'll be of interest, I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm out tonight, so I may have to catch up on that tomorrow. But until then, hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.